Incredible moment revealed. How one little girl transformed a deaf girl's silent signal at the afternoon camp performance. Emily's heart raced as she practiced her solo at the mirror, her mom's old ukulele clutched tightly in her hands. This summer was going to be different. The local camp promised a magical experience filled with music and laughter, and she could already imagine herself losing track of time, dancing and singing. But today, that excitement turned into a nervous pit deep in her stomach. What if she wasn't good enough? What if the other kids didn't want to befriend her? Those fears tugged at her thoughts like mischievous fireflies buzzing a little too close to a flame. And yet, she remembered her grandmother's stories. Music had the power to connect even the most unlikely friends. But then, the news hit like a thunderclap. "You'll be partnered with Mia," the camp counselor announced, her voice echoing throughout the crowded room. Mia was the quiet girl who often sat alone, her eyes downcast and fingers folded tightly in her lap. Emily's initial excitement faltered. She didn't know much about Mia, only that she didn't hear the music. The gauntlet of doubt surged within Emily. Who was she to think she could bridge the silence? Empathy and determination tightened together, creating a knot in her chest. She felt fiercely protective of Mia, aware of the whispers around her, but also paralyzed by the enormity of the challenge ahead. The first few days passed in a blur of confusion and overwhelming emotion. Emily's enthusiasm collided with the reality of Mia's silence, leaving her feeling helpless. She studied her hands, trembling slightly, wrestling with the weight of their proposed performance. Why her? Why not someone who hears? A voice echoed in Emily's mind, twisting her insides. As Mia signed simple words, Emily stumbled through the basics of sign language. The laughter and fun she imagined evaporated like morning dew. Each evening's disappointment with herself became a heavy cloak that weighed her down. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then came the moment of revelation when she realized Mia experienced music in profound ways. The vibrations pulsed through her, felt in her fingertips, surged through her limbs. Yet that didn't silence the doubts whispering in Emily's ear, sowing seeds of frustration. As they worked on their piece, preparing for an audience that seemed so unwelcoming and critical, pressure mounted. Their friends' dismissive glances and stifled giggles gnawed at her resolve. Could they really present something meaningful? Emily felt the grip of despair tighten each time she thought of Mia, grasping the strength not just to shine, but to belong. Yet the deadline loomed on the horizon. Just when their collaboration began to take shape, a crushing blow hit. Mia would have to leave the camp for a family emergency. Panic surged within Emily, her heart racing. How could she persuade Mia's family? Would she have the courage to speak up, to fight for their shared dream? Each tick of the clock echoed as she wrestled not just with the urgency of time, but with her heart's own urgency to prove that their friendship, their journey together, held a value far beyond sound. In that anxious space, an unyielding flame ignited inside her. Failure was not an option. The final performance loomed, shrouded in uncertainty and the raw determination to overcome the silence together. Would the world be ready for their melody? Emily paced the small cabin, her fingers drumming nervously on the ukulele. The echoes of her heart mirrored the fretful rhythm, each beat a reminder of Mia's absence. The performance was just days away, and she felt trapped within her mind's labyrinth of doubt. How could she honor the bond they had forged? The thought of quitting crossed her mind, but the fierce spark that had ignited inside her refused to be extinguished. She recalled the moments they spent together, where laughter filled the air, punctuated by Mia's expressive signs. The vibrancy of those experiences clashed with the alarming reality of performing alone. Yet, something deeper than fear stirred within her. There was a lesson to learn, a challenge to face that could transform her. Determined to keep their vision alive, Emily grabbed a notebook and began filling its pages with thoughts, ideas, and lyrics. No longer would she center her performance only on music. She would tell their story, a tale of silence turned into a celebration, a narrative weaving together differences and shared experiences into a tapestry vibrant with emotion. The next morning, fueled by a cocktail of resolve and adrenaline, Emily sought out the camp counselor. It was time to gather the courage to voice her needs. "I have an idea for the performance," she began, her voice trembling but steadying with each syllable. "It can be more than just singing," she explained, her excitement inching toward a crescendo. "I want to include sign language and visuals to transport the audience to the world Mia and I created." The counselor raised an eyebrow, an expression of skepticism swirling alongside intrigue. Emily's heart thudded in her chest, the steady beats urging her to forge ahead. "We can use lighting to highlight different emotions, rhythm to guide the flow. Can we create props, something textured for the audience to feel the music?" The possibilities poured out unrestrained, and as she spoke, a vision crystallized. As the counselor nodded slowly, Emily felt a flicker of hope ignite anew. This was the breakthrough she needed. It wasn't merely a solo performance, it was about expressing their connection, a melding of worlds through creativity. Returning to the cabin, Emily picked up the ukulele, but this time she strummed with purpose. With each chord, she infused the tale of her friendship with Mia. She did not have to carry the weight of the performance alone. Compounding for creative aspirations, she began to enlist the help of fellow campers. The notion of togetherness began to blossom as they rallied around her vision. Days passed with brainstorming sessions turning into vibrant workshops, laughter bouncing around the room as they crafted their performance, illustrating the profound relationship between sound and silence. Each candidate brought their own focus and energy, binding them closer as a supportive family, while Emily guided them from her newly found role as a creator. Yet whispers of uncertainty still slithered through her thoughts. Would Mia return in time? What if the message got lost in the chaos of performance? The fears never fully subsided, but Emily learned to channel them into determination. She began to notice even her previous anxieties could be reframed. They were evolving from bound shackles into sparking motivation. However, just as her confidence surged, she received a text from Mia's family, a concise message, more sobering than she anticipated. Her heart dropped as the words sunk in. Mia would be away longer than hoped, and the uncertainty clawed at the edges of Emily's heart. Would this too slip away from her grasp? With the performance night closing in, Emily faced the darkness of doubt once more, rekindling those earlier fears. Determined not to succumb, she inhaled deeply, solidifying her resolve. The true challenge loomed ahead. Could she transform their collective dream into something magnificent without Mia? As she adjusted her ukulele once more, an idea sparked, one that may launch her into the unknown. But would it be enough to weave their story together when the lights shined down on her? The moment of truth was drawing near, and Emily braved the commencement of a new chapter in her artistic journey, one that could either resonate in harmony or fall into silence. Emily set the ukulele aside, the strings still vibrating slightly from her last chord. The quiet cabin felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on her doubts. She pushed herself to take a breath, determined not to let fear silence her growing resolve. The rehearsal session with her fellow campers had been a success, yet the looming absence of Mia cast a haunting shadow over her creativity. In her mind, the performance transformed into an ambiguous entity, hovering between fear and possibility. Every moment spent planning had darkened with uncertainty, but Emily recognized that this chaos was part of the journey. The truth was that she was beginning to rise beyond her initial limitations. The concept she had birthed didn't just belong to the two of them anymore. It had morphed into a symphony of collective energy, realized through the contributions of the campers who had embraced her vision. But the nagging question clawed back. How could she make this performance vividly represent her bond with Mia? Reflecting on all they had shared, she caught herself returning to one specific moment, a time when Mia had broken through her own silence with a simple gesture, a tickling breeze of laughter shared over art supplies. Emily had never considered herself a visual artist, but now the thought of intertwining drawings, colors, and textures with music sparked an exhilarating sense of purpose. The visuals would tell the story, complementing the lyricism, creating an immersive experience. Fueled by this revelation, Emily rushed to gather supplies from her cabin, a collection of markers, paper, and textures she had set aside for routine crafts. With a determined hand, she began to illustrate scenes that encapsulated the essence of her friendship with Mia. The laughter-filled afternoons, the shared experiences, moments of learning, growth, and joy. Colors flowed bright and vivid across each page, echoing the vibrancy that Mia had brought into her life, even in her absence. As Emily worked, the shadows of doubt loomed, but transformed into whispers of encouragement. Each stroke of the marker, each pop of color, reinforced the idea that she was capable of leading this performance into its true form. The connection with Mia was not defined solely by their physical presence, but rather in the emotions they had cultivated together, in how they navigated the complexities of silence and sound. Bringing her sketches together, Emily realized her performance would now serve as a bridge, a vivid connection to Mia even in her absence. It wouldn't merely be about her alone. This was a portrayal of their unique journey. The decisions around lighting and texture previously excited her, but now they felt paramount in conveying their shared tale. However, as she stepped back to review her work, an unsettling thought crept in. What if her ideas weren't enough? What if the audience was left feeling nothing? Emboldened by resolve, she reminded herself that this performance was more than a presentation. It was an act of love and remembrance. The clock ticked ominously in the background. With mere days remaining, she needed to refine her visual storytelling and rehearse how these elements could flow seamlessly with the music. Emily's newfound confidence surged, yet the challenge of integrating the visuals with the rhythm still loomed as a monster of complexity ahead. The next morning brought fresh anxiety. Triumphs danced alongside the fear of failure. She decided to confront this turmoil instead of shying away. It was no longer about just her voice, nor simply the memories of Mia, but the creation of a message that could transcend their individual experiences. Would the sights and sounds fuse perfectly, captivating a crowd that could carry the spirit of their bond into the world? Emily's heart raced, her hands shook in preparation. As she approached her friends who had diligently supported her amidst her fears, she knew the journey of transformation was not solely hers. Together, they would face the unknown. What awaited them just beyond the horizon of this process, and could the amalgamation of art and emotion truly do justice to the bond she cherished? With her heart set on creating something profound, Emily was ready to draft her narrative. But she was unaware that this chapter was only the beginning of a revelation she'd soon discover about herself and the legacy they yearned to construct. Emily's hands hovered over her sketches, the vibrant colors screaming for attention, while her mind raced with possibilities. The visual threads of her performance danced tantalizingly close to clarity, yet an unsettling chill crept down her spine. Each stroke seemed to carry the weight of her expectations, the lingering fear that she could fall short of both personal ambition and the deeper essence of her connection with Mia. She couldn't ignore the gnawing sensation that the audience's applause might feel hollow without a genuine emotional resonance. As days dwindled, the stakes grew higher. She organized a meeting with her friends, eager to enlist their insights. Would their fresh perspectives help breathe life into her nervous ambition? She sought them beneath the sprawling oak tree, its leaves whispering encouragement in the soft afternoon breeze. The sunlight shimmered through, painting a hopeful portrait on their faces as they gathered. "Emily, this looks incredible," Mark exclaimed, pointing at her drawings. "But what if we also included a moment where we reflect on our own experiences? It could enhance what you want to convey." His suggestion sparked a cascade of ideas, fanning the flames of her creativity. Emily nodded enthusiastically, feeling a flicker of connection surge through her. This was becoming a collaboration, the momentum of collective energy in action. Suddenly, her emotional burdens weren't hers to bear alone. She had teammates. But a nagging voice interjected. Would their contributions dilute her essence, or worse, overshadow her tribute to Mia? Determined to navigate this crossroads, Emily spoke up. "Let's not just focus on moments we've shared as a group. I want this to embody Mia's spirit. Can we incorporate how each of us feel her presence, even when she's not physically here?" The discussion spiraled into vivid details. Each friend shared how specific memories of Mia lingered, conjuring warmth amid their grief. They envisioned a hybrid performance, where her visual storytelling intersected with live dialogue. The haunting silence in Mia's absence was transformed into a dialogue of voices, a symphony that would not only celebrate their friendship, but also embrace the complexities of memory and loss. With newfound energy coursing through her, Emily began to draft a structure. How the visuals would blend with the spoken words, how the lighting would shift to evoke emotion, and how music would elevate the experience altogether. Each decision grew more deliberate, an exercise in solving the puzzle of integration. But with clarity came hesitation, thick and palpable. Time slipped away, a relentless tide that threatened to drown her soaring vision. She spent every free minute practicing, rehearsing with her teammates, while internal doubts clawed at her resolve. Could she truly command a stage that demanded not just her core, but the very essence of another? One evening, while alone in her cabin, she stumbled upon a box of Mia's old belongings. A collection of drawings Mia had created, rich with imagery and emotion, sprang forth like a time capsule of inspiration. Each piece encapsulated their friendship, joy, sorrow, silliness, reflecting Mia's unique way of communicating through art. It sparked something deep within Emily's core. With renewed purpose, she decided to incorporate Mia's art into the performance, creating a visual dialogue that intertwined Mia's talent with her own. As Emily fused the memories into a coherent visual narrative, she gasped at the realization that the limitations she'd imposed upon herself were shattering. Though uncertainty still lingered, it transformed from a suffocating fog into a motivating force, a clarion call to authenticity. Emily resolved that she would share this collaborative tribute, make it resonate not only with her, but also from Mia's spirit. Could this performance transcend her initial fear, and would it invite others to embrace their vulnerabilities too? With each passing moment, Emily meticulously crafted a piece that felt alive, throbbing with emotions as raw as the colors on her canvas. But as she prepared for their final rehearsal, a volatile sense of doubt loomed larger than before. The final night approached. Could she summon the courage to step into the light, to express the depth of her connection in a way that would honor Mia meaningfully? As Emily stood on the precipice of unveiling her heart, an icy question flashed through her mind. Was she truly ready to confront what the stage would reveal? It was time for the truth to surface, and the moment of reckoning was at hand. The theater's ambiance buzzed with an energy that felt both exhilarating and suffocating. Emily stood backstage, shrouded in half-light, grappling with the heaviness of the moment. The final rehearsal had just concluded, each friend sharing nervous glances of anticipation and encouragement. Yet the closer she got to the stage, the more the stakes escalated. This wasn't just a performance, it was an act of vulnerability, a canvas painted with Mia's memory and her own emotions.
Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, creating a rhythm that matched the energy of the audience beyond the curtains. Each seated person represented a layer of expectation: friends, family, acquaintances. Would they see the authenticity she sought to convey, or would it feel fabricated? A voice inside her screamed for clarity, boundaries around her intention, yet that very impulse threatened to drown her confidence. Emily closed her eyes, summoned the stillness that eluded her, and reflected on the reason for this gathering. It was not simply to perform, but to honor. This thought crystallized her focus. She envisioned Mia's laughter, intertwined in each spoken line and vibrant brushstroke. It was an anchor in her swirling sea of self-doubt. With deliberate breaths, she opened
her eyes and visualized the stage flooded in colors akin to her sketches, ready to come alive. Little by little, she embraced the waves of fear washing over her. They transformed into electric energy, invigorating and relentless. What if this wasn't just about Mia, but about her potential to connect with others? A unique ability to elicit emotion through authenticity and art that she yearned to unleash. With a final glance at her sketches, she resolved to embrace every emotion, every moment bestowed by her memories. Everyone had gathered, the lights dimmed, and murmurs faded to a hush. Emily's entrance was a crossroads, an entrance not just onto the stage, but into a new facet of her identity. Lines of dialogue danced on her tongue, and she stepped forward, craving acceptance of her past while carving her future. As she spoke the first few words of her narrative, an exhilarating surge reaffirmed her resolve. The audience absorbed her stories, the weight of grief balanced with flickers of joy woven into each memory shared. She could feel the absence of Mia grow palpable, yet instead of a hollow feeling, it bloomed into a beautiful homage. Breath by breath, she built a bridge between her heart and theirs. As the performance escalated, Emily witnessed an unforeseen shift. Her friends emerged, each weaving their own truths. Stories about Mia threading through their voices, each note spiraling into a collective expression of loss and love. It was a quilt of shared healing, no longer solitary but intertwined with the specter of their beloved. Gradually, Emily regained herself, transformed from a vessel of fear into a guiding force resonating through raw vulnerability. She moved between spoken word and visual expression, expertly layering her sketches with sound, transforming the performance into a tapestry of connections. It became clearer. Her anxiety was merely a reflection of her commitment to this tribute. The audience, too, was captured, not as silent spectators, but as participants in an unfolding story that was undeniably human. But halfway through the performance, a sudden doubt buried itself in the back of her mind. What if the climax, the moment they all had been waiting for, the particular glance or emotion she sought, was yet to come? Emily felt her pulse quicken, torn between the distinct taste of triumph and the creeping sensation that she was merely skimming the surface. As she neared the end of her performance, an unexpected silence enveloped the room, deafening yet profound. She wished for the ability to peel back the layers of intimacy she felt, to force the audience to confront their own hidden truths. Yet would they embrace their stories, or remain static in the comfort of silence? With conviction surging through her, Emily whispered the final lines. The raw emotion echoed through the darkness. She would face the looming tension and step into the uncharted territory of her truth. The moment of reckoning was upon her. What would she uncover about herself by the time the curtains fell, and more importantly, would they reflect on the power of vulnerability to transform and heal? Emily took a deep breath and awaited the answer. The silence stretched interminably as Emily stood center stage, her heart pounding in rhythm with the drum of breaths echoing in the hushed theater. Every pair of eyes was fixed on her, demanding the revelation she now hesitated to deliver. This was the moment she had envisioned, the piece de resistance of her tribute.
Yet an urgent whisper of doubt flooded her mind. Was she ready to plunge deeper into the tributaries of her own emotion? She felt the heat of the lights above, the prickling sensation of vulnerability coursing through her veins. Each flicker of doubt, a weight on her shoulders, threatened to pull her under. Yet a flicker of resolve stirred within. At that moment, she recognized this struggle as the essence of her journey, the push and pull of fear against the innate yearning to connect. She could not simply recite words, she needed to embody them, feeling each syllable resonate with the memory of Mia, her laughter, her voice, and her undying spirit. As she moved to the front of the stage, Emily focused on the faces engulfed in shadows, familiar and yet distant. Friends who had walked beside her, family who had nurtured her, and the countless acquaintances who had shaped her journey. Each one harbored their own pain, their own story of grief. Yet here, woven with her narrative, lay the possibility for collective catharsis. She breathed deeply, letting the silence mold into a canvas, her canvas. With every inhalation, she drew strength from Mia's spark. The confrontation of sorrow transformed into the promise of cathartic artistry. It was time to shed the layers of expectation that weighed heavily upon her. Step by step, she positioned herself to present the climax of her performance. She began to speak of the moment Mia had taught her the meaning of the unspoken, of silence filled with heartbeats and shared glances. As her voice flowed, it became raw and impassioned, bearing her heart before the audience. Emily tapped into a reservoir of memories flooded with colors. Mia's smile during whispered secrets and the tears shared over stolen moments of joy. With each word, she approached the precipice of her emotions, wrestling with the lingering question, would they understand? Then she felt it, a shift in the atmosphere, an electric tug at her core. She took a step back, not out of fear, but to invite her friends into the frame. As they joined her, each took a moment to share their brush with loss, igniting the resonance of Mia's life in a way more profound than any monologue could accomplish alone. The exchange unfolded naturally, a dynamic interplay of voices and expressions echoing around the theater. They didn't just remember Mia, they unveiled their own scars, transforming the performance into a collective testament to love born out of grief. Emily became both orchestrator and participant, marshaling emotions carefully as she directed this symphony.
Of open hearts. The euphoria she felt was palpable. She had moved beyond the individual into the realm of shared healing. Yet, as the applause thundered in waves around her, a gnawing sensation stirred inside, a persistent echo of that earlier doubt. Had she truly confronted her own insecurities, or merely become a vessel for others? Was it possible that the solace she sought extended beyond herself and into the lives of those who witnessed her vulnerability? As the grand finale drew closer, Emily couldn't shake the awareness of an impending revelation, one born from the crumbling walls of her interior landscape. What did it mean to be not only an artist, but also a human yearning for connection? This performance was merely the beginning. In the wake of the last applause, a powerful decision loomed in the back of her mind. If she could transcend her fear once on stage, what would happen when faced with the world beyond the curtain? It was a challenge she wasn't sure she was ready to face. And with that thought, the curtain fell, leaving Emily caught between lingering questions and newfound strength, drawing her into the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Would she embrace the raw uncertainty of her path forward? Would she willingly face her fears again for the sake of her art? The echoes of applause faded into the recesses of Emily's mind, leaving behind a void that resonated louder than any cheer. The stage lights dimmed, but in her thoughts, the spotlight remained bright, highlighting her internal turmoil. She was still hovering in that electrified space, caught between the euphoria of her performance and the sheer weight of what it represented. Perhaps this was what Mia would have wanted, to push through the discomfort and uncover the layers of vulnerability buried so deep within. As she navigated the backstage area, her pulse quickened, feeling the aftershocks of shared pain and connection. Her friends' voices replayed in her head, each story a vital thread weaving back into her own. Yet she felt unmoored. Were they not just sharing their grief, but also a mirror reflecting her own uncertainties? Their openness demanded a kind of introspection she hadn't adequately prepared for. Emily paused as she stepped into familiar shadows off stage. The air felt thick with confrontation and potential. What was she meant to do with this newfound strength? It had been a leap forward, yes, but now the abyss of the reality beyond the stage loomed larger than before. A tickle of frustration poked at her consciousness. Why hadn't she prepared for the aftermath? In the days leading up to the performance, she focused solely on the delivery, as if that was the end at all. Now, standing alone for the first time since she'd stepped onto that stage, the implications of that moment cascaded down upon her. In that isolation, Emily began to test her new resolve. She needed to confront the raw uncertainty instead of shying away from it. She brushed past the feeling
of inadequacy, recalling the way her friends had taken risks in their storytelling. Their bravery ignited a spark within her. Determined, she walked toward the reflection of herself in a nearby mirror. She looked directly into her own eyes, demanding that she acknowledge her lingering fears. It was one thing to compel others to share their vulnerabilities, and another entirely to expose her own. "Okay, Emily," she whispered, knowing no one else was there to hear. "You made them feel. Now, what will you do?" The words were both a challenge and a promise. It was time to expand the borders of her comfort, both in artistry and in honesty. The hallway beyond the stage entrance swirled with the energy of post-performance camaraderie, filled with laughter and tears intermingled. Emily craved that interaction, but hesitated, an invisible wall forming around her despite the warmth of company. How could she navigate this delicate dance? In that moment, a decision crystallized. She would reach out to Mia's family to offer support, a gesture shaped by her experience on stage. It was a chance to deepen her connection to both her art and to others. But would that be enough? Was it a simple act of service, or could it serve as a bridge for her own healing too? As she turned to join her friends, words began to form in her mind. She needed to share how the performance had not only ignited their memories, but had illuminated her own path as well. This could be the catalyst for her next chapter. But the thought tugged at her, unraveling that single thread. Were her motivations selfless, or was she searching for validation and acknowledgement in the wake of her own existential questioning? With each step toward her friends, she wrestled with those layers. An artist's plight turned intimately personal. What were the implications of her actions moving forward? The moment slowed, heavy with anticipation. Would she redefine her purpose as an artist, or would she fall back into familiar patterns of self-doubt? Caught in that crossroads, she knew the stakes were about to escalate. For Emily, it was no longer a question of mere performance. It would require an exploration that delved into the depths of honesty, hers and those she longed to connect with more intimately. As she took a deep breath, ready to amplify her voice once more, she felt the gravity of the decisions awaiting her. What awaited her beyond tentative connections was a reality packed with emotional unearthing. It was time for the next evolution of her journey. But would she embrace the uncertainty fully? With her heart pounding anew, she stepped into the gathering, ready to discover what awaited in this delicate dance of vulnerability and strength. Emily stepped into the vibrant swirl of voices, a fragile energy pulsating around her. The warmth of camaraderie wrapped around her like a safety blanket, but there remained an undeniable distance, an inward voice reminding her that she stood at the precipice of
something larger than herself. She took a deep breath, brushing aside the lingering doubts. As she mingled, she sensed the high tide of emotional connection rising among her friends, a collective outpouring that tugged at her heart. One by one, her friends approached her, their faces lit with elation. Their words spilled over in waves, recounting personal anecdotes inspired by her performance. It was as if they took turns reflecting the glow of her moment, each shining light casting a new perspective on her own experience. Yet, as they sang her praises, she felt an unsettling twist in her stomach. Did their admiration validate her, or merely mask the undercurrents of her insecurities? Determined not to let such uncertainties divert her from her newfound purpose, Emily focused her attention outward. She engaged in conversations meant to uplift, to share, yet with each interaction, she felt the weight of vulnerability pressing down. She wanted to share what she had discovered that night, the sheer power of connection through storytelling, but every attempt faltered at her lips. A flicker of fear surged each time she focused inward, afraid it would spiral into self-doubt instead of community. It was then she spotted Mia's family across the room. They appeared to be nestled in a circle of friends, receiving the warmth of others, yet their grief lingered in the air, undiluted by the celebrations surrounding them. The urge to reach out surged in her chest. Emily took a tentative step forward. Could she really go up to them after sharing that piece of herself? What if her words didn't offer the solace she hoped for? She paused, the tension building as she calculated her next move. This act needed to be sincere, devoid of the validation she craved, a true moment of support. "Let's do this," she murmured to herself, the conviction buzzing in her veins. Emily approached, her heart racing as she reached the group. She felt exposed, fear threatening to cloud her purpose. Yet something deeper flickered, an understanding that selflessness bore great potential to heal her spirit. "Hi," she began, her voice steadying as she met their eyes. "I just wanted to say how much Mia's story resonated with me. It stirred something profound within myself, and I hope it's brought you some comfort too." Her gaze lingered on Mia's parents, searching for a spark of connection. They exchanged glances, surprise mingling with sorrow. Eventually, Mia's mother stepped forward, her face softening. "Thank you for saying that." She often spoke about wanting to touch others through her expressions. Emily found herself nodding, realization dawning like light breaking through clouds. This was more than just honoring Mia's memory. It was a testament to the ripple effect of art, of how it channels emotions and the unexpected paths it creates for healing. She wanted to know more, to understand so she could harness those emotions into her own work. With each moment they shared, Emily felt the comfort of vulnerability rise within her. They exchanged stories, feelings, and, amidst the pain, she saw unexpected beauty, a tapestry woven with shared grief, love, and artistry. The walls she had erected began to crumble, but a creeping thought persisted. Was this act selfless? Or was she still seeking approval, a desperate grasp at affirmation for her own fears? She clenched her fists and grounded herself, aware that this moment could pivot her future. Perhaps it's both, she pondered quietly as the gathering began to morph around her, a mingling of laughter and tears again. With an electric jolt of resolve, Emily realized that navigating this delicate ground required striking a balance, embracing her artistry while fostering genuine connections. And as they continued exchanging words charged with emotion, a profound thought struck Emily. What lay ahead was a chance not just to connect with Mia's family, but also an exploration of her identity as an artist. Would she dare to dive deeper into the depths of her passion, facing the unsettling truths that emerged along the way? With the pulse of newfound clarity instilling both hope and fear, she knew her next steps would demand courage. What awaited her was no ordinary pursuit of art. It was a commitment to explore the raw, unfiltered essence of herself and those around her. A venture begging the question, would she dare to unravel her own narrative? The atmosphere thickened with potential as Emily felt her heart race with anticipation for the adventures yet to unfold, fully aware that the path demanded not just confidence, but conviction. As she absorbed every word shared around her, she couldn't shake the feeling that a decisive encounter loomed, one that could cast her future trajectory into an entirely new realm. As the evening deepened, Emily found herself absorbed in the stories surrounding her. Each narrative was a thread, weaving its way through the complex tapestry of emotions and memories that hung in the air. She realized for the first time that these shared moments were not simply a reflection of herself.
They offered a lens to view the intricate connections that bind us all. Her inhibitions began to fade, replaced with a burgeoning curiosity. What could happen if she allowed this experience to unearth her true artistic voice? Feeling stirred, Emily slipped away from Mia's family, the discussions echoing in her mind. She wandered slightly from the gathering, seeking a quieter corner. The hubbub transformed into a backdrop, allowing her thoughts to solidify. She wanted to immerse herself in her own artistic journey, to redefine her relationship with storytelling. But how would she express the rawness of vulnerability that had cracked her shell? In that moment, the weight of self-examination pressed down on her. Could she truly dig into her emotions without the fear of how it might be received? The image of Mia, vibrant, unfiltered, flickered in her thoughts. She had touched lives without knowing how deeply her art resonated. The realization hit her. Vulnerability was not a weakness, but a compelling force. What held her back was the fear of rejection.
Yet, isn't the pursuit of authenticity worth the risk? Driven by this newfound urgency, Emily returned to the gathering with a purpose. As she leaned into conversations, she began to disclose her own struggles, her doubts, the shadows lurking beneath her passion. The moment she shared her experience of fear and the limiters she felt, the room pulsed with energy. Suddenly, she was not merely an observer, but a participant in a greater exchange. Her friends listened intently, and their responses reassured her that they too carried their own burdens. The fear of isolation dissipated, swept away by the mutual understanding that rose from each confession. Emily's perspective on storytelling shifted within an instant. It wasn't just about the performance, it was a shared empathy, a converging of individual truths. After a while, Mia's mother approached her again, a light in her demeanor. "Emily, you have a gift, not just for performing, but for connecting through your words. When you speak from the heart, it can inspire others to do the same." Hot breath caught in Emily's throat. The authenticity of her expression sparked a flurry of thoughts. Inspired but apprehensive, she questioned her own capacity to explore this newfound path. Would her voice carry the same weight when she bared her soul with the same raw honesty? Despite the uncertainties, a flicker ignited within her. This was her moment to embrace the artist in her. She felt a deep yearning to channel the emotions she had witnessed that night into her future work. Stepping back, she pondered her next move. Should she create a new piece that encapsulated these encounters, or dive headfirst into a deeper exploration of her identity? Dare she replace performance for authenticity? With each inquiry, the intensity of her desire to evolve subsumed her doubts. She needed to explore the unvarnished depths of her narrative, the exhilarating thrill and the stomach-churning fear that arose with every step. Here lay an opportunity to confront the daunting challenge of expressing herself without the veil of affectation. As the laughter and conversation swelled around her once more, Emily recognized this as a crucible for transformation. The core of her artistic evolution awaited, daring yet perilous. But the pull toward tumultuous honesty was impossible to resist. Determined to undertake the exploration ahead, she stepped back into the vibrant sea of voices. The night buzzed with potential, yet behind her enthusiasm lurked the specter of self-doubt and the looming challenge of exposing her vulnerabilities. What if she stumbled? A jarring realization struck her. Every struggle had the potential to yield something beautiful. She grasped this thread tightly, feeling it vibrating with possibilities. But beneath this exhilaration lay an urgent question. Would she have the courage to expose her spirit, bearing witness to all that had shaped her? Just as she felt ready to embrace this journey, a shadow passed across her thoughts. A fleeting notion that perhaps confronting herself meant pulling away from the very connections she yearned to deepen. Would facing her demons mean distancing herself from those around her? The night loomed ahead, thick with promising uncertainty, as Emily felt herself on the brink of a significant, transformative moment.
What awaited her in the tapestry of her artistry remained untold, an uncharted territory waiting for her to uncover and reveal. The quest for her true voice began here, underpinned by one pressing realization: the journey would challenge everything she thought she knew about connection and self-expression. In the following week, Emily dedicated herself to introspection and creativity. She transformed the shadows of uncertainty into a canvas of artistic expression. Every moment of fear became fuel for her newly ignited passion, enriching her work in ways she never anticipated. Stripping her art of pretenses, she aimed to forge an authentic relationship between her voice and the narratives surrounding loss, love, and personal authenticity. Emily began revisiting her sketches, each stroke an echo of her evolving thoughts. As colors danced beneath her fingertips, she integrated Mia's essence, documenting their shared laughter, silent connections, and the profound lessons learned from their time together. This wasn't merely a tribute. It evolved into a transformative exploration of the very essence of friendship, an artist's journey manifesting the intricacies of shared human experiences. Gradually, she formulated a comprehensive plan, a mixed media performance that would weave spoken narratives with her sketches. Each drawing would serve as a backdrop, intertwining elements of visual art with storytelling. The layering of textures not only highlighted the contrast of sound and silence, but also offered the audience an immersive experience where they could touch what they felt, bridging the gap between observation and participation. As her vision coalesced, she approached her friends with enthusiasm, inviting them to contribute their stories alongside hers. They eagerly engaged, developing scenes that would encapsulate their memories with Mia. Surprisingly, the collaborative effort deepened their connections, transforming personal grief into shared healing. They became more than just friends. They united as contributors to a mosaic of collective memory. The days turned into a flurry of rehearsals, laughter, and unexpected breakthroughs. Emily felt the weight of self-doubt lessen. Each line spoken, each emotion shared, became validation of her commitment to vulnerability and authenticity. The energy within the group surged, propelling them toward a mountain of creativity that blossomed under the transformative alchemy of their artistic practice. Then came the day of the performance, an event not merely focused on entertainment, but rather on deep emotional resonance. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, and Emily felt the familiar ache of anxiety mixed with exhilaration. She was ready to present a journey brimming with vulnerability and the shared experiences of love and loss. Her heart beat in sync with her vision. Backstage, Emily peeked through the drapes, observing the gathering crowd. She could hear whispered conversations, the murmur rising and falling like waves. In that moment, she grasped the impact her work could have. This was more than a simple performance. It was a chance to connect hearts. As she took her place at the forefront of
the stage, she felt the spotlight curl around her, illuminating her transformed self. The first words spilled from her lips with a clarity honed by reflection. She shared the essence of her bond with Mia, deftly portraying their friendship, the silence they navigated, and the laughter that punctuated their moments together. Each line she spoke resonated with confidence, creating ripples of understanding amongst her audience. With every transition from spoken word to visual storytelling, Emily felt the emotional core unite her performers on stage. They danced and intertwined their narratives, inviting the audience to share their own memories of relationship, longing, and connection. Applause erupted, not as a mere appreciation, but rather as a symbiotic acknowledgement of their shared human experience. As the performance concluded, tears brimmed in Emily's eyes, not from sadness, but from a profound sense of fulfillment. The bonds she'd forged with her friends and the legacy of Mia had been preserved and celebrated. She stepped forward, basking in the flood of applause, feeling the rush of acceptance envelop her. No longer was she just Emily the performer. She had emerged as Emily the artist, a person who understood that vulnerability could indeed be a bridge connecting souls.
In that moment of catharsis, the transition into a solid, confident version of herself felt remarkably real. Emily recognized her capacity as an empathetic storyteller, embracing the strength rooted in authenticity. She had accomplished not just a performance, but also a personal transformation, a tangible growth that affirmed her artistry and the importance of sharing nuanced human experiences. The fears that once threatened her spirit now skittered away, replaced by a rightful sense of self, competence, and clarity. As she stepped off stage, enveloped in applause and validation, Emily understood her journey was just beginning. She was now equipped to face the world beyond the curtain, armed with the knowledge that true artistry lies in bearing one's soul. The echo of Mia's laughter rang in her heart, forever propelling her forward, intertwined with her newfound purpose. Emily was ready to embrace the world with open arms, knowing the potency of connection, artistry, and authentic expression. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.